changes made to the one you see that y'all sent out to us before?
No. I think there's like one part that will maybe, that's like.
I'm saying like just like the cards already sent, like none were taken out.
Yeah, they have it. And, or actually, send it to the back. Like send it to the back.
And Curtis is still coming in for sure.
Yeah. I sent it twice. I had to add an email the second time. But
There it is. But the two that you sent are the same, it doesn't matter which
Yeah,
one
it's
they
the
open. I just got the second. For the same Affirmative?
He's getting his stuff from the other one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for being late. I actually didn't plug in my laptop. Should your laptop close? Yeah. You have a charger?
Here. I have two. Yes. My laptop just like rebooting just because it died, so I gotta
judges all have it. It's not great. Like, you're in
It's not great. Can we close that door?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I think we're good.
Okay. Both of you good?
No. So,
I got it. Oh, okay, I'm good.
Alright. Mass issues.
Yeah, I don't, it's not that.
Alright, is anyone not good? The advantages of questionability threats of first use generate unsustainable commitment, tries to guarantee third use first non-necessary credibility commitments, use skeptics, allies by threatening to comply with use of nuclear attack by threatening retaliation, commitment out on my benefit, use of non-nuclear attacks, plus credible for the threatening, future responsive dialogue, protecting credible non-addressed response, not effective, deter threats of nuclear success, rate accidental nuclear escalation, make threats of terrorism, commitment greater, commitment trafficking, so the metal future, traffic responsibility, to devastating attack, committing so fast, commitments as suggesting the United States, on use first undermines credibility, nuclear retaliation, supported by the nature of the threat, use first, causing conventional capabilities, externally ambiguity forces, miscalculated, wars, gower, 18. Crash visibility miscalculation, risk increase for region of third policy, watch derived from the need to conduct nuclear war, requires some victims of third policy, speed risk, fog war made eventually by missile fear of cyber fear, decapitating, strikes for basic chance that attacks, nuclear increases during complex AI integration magnifies the risk. Johnson, 23. Nuclear stability is saturated by AI multipolarity response to miscalculation, increasing escalation, the different failure, multipolarity created, escalation, pathways, each state choose, the response to digital age compromise, safety to capture the upper hand, competition ratchet up because of attackers can compound, destabilizing effects, safety sign, and conduct to the worst, attempted use towards AI, receives the threat, disrupt, or strike, and probable that advance of the stabilizing effects, access to be required attention to do 9 interactions involve complex and playable, complicated escalation during crises, only restricted declaratory posture can offset miscalculation. Johnson, 20. A exacerbates escalation caused by nuclear weapons, increasing speed, undermining stability of the state, perceived survivability, risk capabilities, having destabilizing effect. A will depend upon other assumptions that be encoded by human engineers, having resulting in unintended outcomes, significant risk, likely pressure to adopt unsustainable postures, presenting and if you exercise first strike commanders, lose control speed, is capacity of human deterrence, depends on clear communication threats, which assume sheer context. AI enables speed, knowledge, and lethality. Move up this escalation wrongs. AI surpasses human ability to control, understand warfare, human and machine are compound. The emergent nuclear order presents a unique convergence of risks. Comment 23. Deterrence crises still have multiple states, augment incentives, multiply ambiguities, misconduct, produce unintended crisis, turn about obsolete, data, damage, limitation, and inside this 10. Moderate action, U.S. nothing, all mutual vulnerability makes forces more spiral, turn, intended, improve, counterforce, against facts, name 1. Cascading by shaking back, alliance credits hard, selling no co-channel, the United States first strike crews enhanced, tolerance for escalation, U.S. Alliance commitments, fake, inevitable, access and lower unauthorized use, consequential decisions, better arsenal, competition, safety, security, complex incentives, procedures, lead to responsible behavior, catastrophe, prospects for horizontal and vertical escalation, to sync concurrent crisis escalate on the U.S., Russia, China, no go into Pakistan, Middle East, Israel, Iran, Turkey, Saudi, quickly drawing, mistakenly attributed attack on new forces, CNC, simultaneously harder to de-escalate, difficult with transfer centers, complicated signaling, instabilities, intensify, never more wars are possible to bring heroes of miscalc escalation, accident, unauthorized use, United States, not adopted, and if you go, governance process, allies go, hero players make instabilities, dominate, cost of first strike massively outweighs benefits, only an NEG condemn miscalculation to guarantee stability, set the from 2. Direct engagement eliminated other issue pertaining to utility, news, figure price, receiver, items, which previously mentioned forces never used defined, use reduced retaliation, make punishment, opportunities can be exploited, reinforced, transformatively, any scenarios which can be used for racing, and if you does not make close states, disadvantage, loss, country, your chain, low security, delivery station, arsenals, first trigger capabilities, first adversary, use to trigger, preemption, and if he was offered stability, and never use calculation, accident, not be your analysis, focus for incremental steps like the plan, reduce nuclear risks, and are comparatively more effective evidence. 21. Those are the things we've been talking about, theory of energy. Prohibition, the original attack measures, and as far as ever has been, prohibition is emotional, no environment, the form of states are well for the foreseeable future reasons are ideological, geopolitical, psychological verification, and enforcement on the way towards nuclear free world is incremental, one material purpose, never the best enemy, maybe a priority now, whereas that extend out to elimination of minimization, NFUs, high priority. Thus, the plan, the United States should adopt a nuclear no first use policy. Finally, is solvency. NFUs the single most important factor in avoiding nuclear war. Quicken. 22. Risk war greater than any time official doctrine called for use of defensive war, maintain the right to use against an adversary housing, you should commit to, and if you Ukraine should pretty big protect Russian things, to reserve the list to left Russia, close prospects, Russian launch attack, no need for routine of the same as your China, and if you reduce risk of unintended escalation, it be difficult to roll back, maintaining first strike capabilities, decimate solvency, starts here. 22. Urge steps are needed to restore stability, require policies to reduce role of nuclear weapons, lower cost, trigger nuclear war, discombination, first use, and conflict, present on acceptable risk, received by mission target ambition, policy, first use, during nuclear attack should be purpose declared to the colors of the never to indicate threatening, increase the chance of miscalculation or accident, and risk of a nuclear conflict over the United States, Russia, China, Ukraine, or time I get out of hand, declares for policy, risk making, from the United States, never start war, reduces likely conflict, escalated wars, get reuse the role playing institutions, understand how they were shooting. I can that part is missing a tag, but I will read it. Fiat is a useful means for radical minds imagining and debating any process like game setting homes, imagining the capabilities that spill outside the activity to shape social relations. Cooper and mentioning 3 simulation getting through role-playing institutions to understand how they work and potentially reverse self-interest is currently viable, refuses to be between incentives rather than way for future figurative politics and bodies. Over changes in the now state law, give states that delivery take over, speculative policy reforms rule of play consequences beyond the matrix, imposing as different relations experimental play through mostly design images, reverses and seriously different terms of free and short political calculation, involvement of central plays, bounded by negotiations, testing, reshaping social relations, equipping students with nuclear policy, acknowledges the valuable, we must close off knowledge gaps that hold officials accountable, can only 18. When it comes to nuclear policy, new Americans are very passively consenting their aspects of unnecessary lawmakers have little accountability comes to the information is engaged in to discuss them. Affects task questions, nuclear policy affects everyone from the public to be engaged, and policy debates is crucial and actually between public and policymakers has become too wide. Broad exposure is insufficient. Debating details is important to stave off risk. Bishop on sheet 20. Houston out standard report of undergrad. Figuring out against the threat is growing challenges. We're not coming away worse than religious government and not enough new experts cannot be recruited. The branches are responsible for non-relevant disarmament will be working directly on sources building awareness of this issue. Exposed to link exposure curriculum. The level of beacon awareness essential for nuclear weapons with increasing contact and intimidating describing secrecy and largely dominated. But men, the Xenos in fact, that nuclear war maintains a significant threat.
Alright, give me 1 second, we're taking prep for this. I'm sending you for resenders. Alright, 9:45. Alright, are you good?
Yeah.
Cool. Connolly evidence says that students need to learn about like nuclear education. Why is the reading of the 1AC specifically key for that?
Just
Like,
reading the 1AC is not. It is about the process of clash and contestation and both sides engaging in a discussion over contesting the 1AC.
okay, so I'm assuming you're going to say that if we read a critique, we're not a good form of nuclear education. Is that it?
Okay, I don't know. It depends on what critique you read. Like,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Cooper and Renz 23, fiat is a useful means for radical ends. Why do simulations require a government focus?
They do not, but the resolution says the AFF has to defend the government, which we think is
Okay.
the most predictable
So-
burden for the affirmative.
Okay, so that's for the app. So in that case, can we defend a counter simulation that does not require the USAID?
No, you're
If other
free to do
simulations
so.
are just as good.
You are free to do so, but we
Okay.
are also free to make arguments as to why, like, that
Wait,
might be
hold on.
unfair.
Why do you get fiat but we don't? If
Well, we
simulations
get
are equally
fiat in the
valuable?
context of the government because it was in the resolution. It was a predictable basis
Yeah,
that
but
we
it's
were
like,
given,
like
delineated
the
in
resolution
advance.
just means the app has to affirm it. That doesn't mean we have to.
Yeah, I mean, you're free to do so. We will just, have critiques of that,
Okay.
like, that we're not gonna reveal it
That
right
just
now.
that just sounds self-serving. Crisis stability, what does like a crisis mean?
A risk of conflict between two or more states.
Okay, what is the terminal impact to like a lack of crisis stability?
To a lack of crisis stability, nuclear conflict.
Okay, why is nuclear conflict bad?
It causes death, suffering in the process of that death.
Okay, what's the time frame for this?
So what?
The time frame?
Pretty fast.
Yeah, the Talmadge evidence indicates that the emerging nuclear order is unstable and that these crises will happen in short term.
Okay, but it's like your Feder 18 evidence that starts off the 1AC is about the Trump administration and the insecurity during that time.
That's
It's
also
been,
not-
hold
That's-
on, give me a second. It's been 6 years in that we've changed administrations and Trump was more politically divisive than Biden on nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Why do you think that, why is threats of first use more likely now than during the Trump administration?
Well, Biden has not adopted a no first use policy, so first use is still a part of the nuclear doctrine.
Also, the Talmadge evidence is from
Yes.
2023 and says there are continuing escalating crises in the SQO that make it uniquely likely now.
Okay. Incremental steps talks about those in the peace movement talk about no use, but it has no buy-in whatsoever. What makes you think that traditional politics like the 1AC persuades policymakers to adopt like risk reduction like NFU?
Well, we think, two things. One is that we don't necessarily think that the end point of our politics is like we become politicians. We can also
I'm not asking like politicians, but it's like you're saying incremental steps are key and more
Yeah, like I'm
effective.
answering what you just said. We're not necessarily just trying to persuade politicians. No matter what type of activism that we want to do, it is vital that we understand how the levers of power operate. So just because
Okay,
we
so-
use
so you don't
fiat
get- so-
does not
so-
mean that we think we
I'm not even asking about
trying
yeah, I'm just
persuade
asking about solvency of the act. And you just said government focus is not necessary, so you don't get this evidence card, right?
No.
I got you.
Oh, you didn't let me get to the second part of my thing, which
Yeah,
was the government is still
process
important.
over, y'all. Right. It'll be one in the case.
Is there a doc?
There is a doc. What if I went no doc? That'd be kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
Wouldn't be great.
Just all flow. It's
So a bunch of multiple terms bad for you.
I'm so sleepy. Oh my god. Damn, there's no water in this room, huh? RIP. Okay. I came late. This is my consequence. Yeah. Okay. Did we all receive the document? No. Yo, so no extra straw. Oh, I see. Just let me know everybody has it. Phil, Justin, Christopher, Shannon. Michigan, you're all good. Start in a couple seconds. Black life is lived within the white happy reality. Every facet of life is valued through the semiological whiteness where blackness is more fundamental in order to preserve a Western-led world. Founded upon anti-black lines that let's be 17 black life within the white happy reality. Blackness is a symbol of death that is but not is not. And this produces black death assimilation. Every encounter of whiteness in the world value produces blackness through ratification. A black trauma, black experience with death and over and over again. The world for itself has fixed on its real blackness. Now the gravity against semiological whiteness fundamental to the anti-black world conduct on the nature social. And also that the black lives deserve to die. And colonial racial capitalism is imploding through existential permacrisis. The one he sees traditional security framework fails to realize that a cyclical failure guided through and unconscious national feelings switch to the black indigenous death that accidentally for 2024 the economic racial capitalism comes to the racial violence war, the coup of the release and destruction of equality, climate change, destruction of racism, and gender of the international order and the real house of academia on the right to self presentation into the imperial conduct gathered by national feeling idea of a universal condition with an right plantation, slavery will kind of sick if you already talk about when the black bodies are not bodies sick if you bodies people flattened on civilized and indigenous movements are directly connected and be a limit connected and be a limit condition moves are connected and ultimate dominance give you hopes of criminalization, racism, sovereignty, and regional exclusive to the limits, sovereignty, constitute, robbery, good shaping how it is to understand the impossible, also disingenuous and derived security when now all lives are considered as deserving reality 24 in the climate change, damage, inflation, food security, and insecurity, the energy crisis, and geopolitical competition, creating democracy, impacting people going in this region, Ukraine, coups in Africa, and Israel, military intervention abroad, homes of the war, accident, research associated with geopolitical, strategical competition, and less conventional, clear, so that's frameworks are to be consistent and colonialism, racer, and the social contract, and our interpretation of the one you see as a research project with epistemology should be scrutinized through a hermeneutic of suspicion. The net benefit of demethodology and whiteness in IR studies that leads to a plentiful clash over competing IR perspectives that resolve their ground and predictability claims, resolve structural unfairness over the position of blackness and indigeneity, and leads to more material change while pretending fiat is illusory, impacting their skills. That's Affirmative 20. Deep into the economy, epistemology, and ignorance, looking at the contributions and non-wits and the center, relaxing the starting point for embracing on the human individuality and really in solidarity and the real within the security of the day would be possible. Absolutely, a real research and great power would be a study of empire law, productively informed by human suspicion, identifying what are necessary towards institutional change, and trying to disarm and disaster in defense of incrementalism via the rhetoric of government disarm allows for nuclear modernization and secret. That's Eklund. 21 stepping to the protocol, nuclear abolition, privately wars over action, and how taken rebellion by government for improving all that nuclear capability and just threat making by the Trump Obama Bush all accepted. Coordination from a nuclear weapon maker and please for heritage playing the hand of those gain to retain monitoring power for nuclear armor, nuclear activity, politicized, relation nuclear arsenal, practical from background, nuclear procedure from bad actors, allies or backsiders or allies or features of the nuclear order. And the one you see is a form of hegemonic anti-nuclearism that justifies conventional shift, the military industrial conflict and global racial capitalism. That's 22 hegemonic anti-nuclear circulating and non-proliferating contracts and testing nuclear weapons, also train that nuclear willingness to assembler, so the understanding about power and building the legitimacy nuclear weapons, second frame the most effective way to nuclearization to its narrative hold on focus on policy benefit and it'll take a long time finding this course, reproduce the substitution nuclear weapons, restricted weapon critiques of imperialism tend to be absent. And the particular framing of acid reproduces a dominant logic that naturalizes global racial capitalism and anti-black captivity and backgrounds of conditions that produce accidents, making them into resources that reproduce and justify gratuitous violence. And to 10, the dominant logic of the politics action disruption systemic energy with politics, made possible including the relation of capital and politics, reproduce the invisibility of neo-colonial imperial product accident formation exceeds the vacant of the epistemological boundaries of the geopolitical party that claims when people absolutely limited accidents becomes restructuring imperial years and the framework and economy, the back of the research of violence, circular action become resource of war policy, make possible to contribute violence, the law acting the optic for class sex, race, and as a race and systematic mentality organizing and confirming dominant understanding of strong structure, reposition, and death, rather, just an accident and Katrina exposed to the seductive imperial sovereign methods of constantly power without question, or obsolete and depoliticizing and historical liberal grammar, conservation, reasonable science, torture, disaster, and accident. And before the 2009, the rest of the American body, the White House, the boardroom, the academic, and underway, there must be certain stability for people eligibility is a state of emergency and accident and organization part of the destruction, dominating, articulating, high roller, occurring, the government of preserve the positive, political effect and practice, the depoliticizing most does make it invisible, front end, the right to the imperial colonial Britain capitalism and accident, disaster, imminent, political causation, neo-imperial summer, colonial order, and their risk analysis for IC for NFU reduction framing called the zero policy failure, unattainable knowledge, overconfidence, and zero consensus, allows for corruption and replication of accidents. And negative 2043 talented reduction framing to limit the knowledge of risk analysis, will be able to effectively predict the future of the granular level when characterizing only a single practical set higher calculation and leading for policy making down a treacherous path of the challenge related to the limits of available technology, technical engineering knowledge, and important case important the human cracks and dirty faulty logic or lack of information close to fostering ruin by all kinds of policymakers to the understanding like the nuclear safety, overconfidence, substance, security, faith in human management, and control, and although the human regards to often having ushered in series of risk reduction measures that reduce probably the nuclear war, nuclear close calls, with the body of large, the part of the life of president, the agenda relies on the ability of the life will be on side and featured in a while for some risk reduction, mandated the adoption of free to policy. Other risk reduction requires the precisely opposite underlying problem than effective risk reduction measures effectively unmeasurable in terms of the risk reduction agenda being processed not be verified in their nuclear risk reduction agenda offer problem in those seeking to rules there listen to nuclear predicament, and their simultaneous description of Russia as a weak state heading toward a collapse, and the state capable of ending the West as an Orientalist view of the war that's captured racism for the benefit of sustaining Western rich capitalism. That's the same 22 the propaganda and appeals to protect the reason civilization and freedom five Russia and main now could you strategy for Russia and deter the country information propaganda produce something Russia to make that linking toward collapse and simultaneously have offered as possible for West province or business from Russia. Obviously, economy and science and the impact you're checking over Russia requires the Western bloc to continue to see increased military spending in the East. West should have been doing that since ancient Greece has been resistance have been reformed to Russia has fear Asiatic people and their focus on race was central. As Russia will be a Mongol invasion on top of the cultural otherness and their history respect and tend to be exchanged in their turn use attention on colonies to the global domination and frame of the language for freedom orientalists after your characteristics saturating different beliefs in the West, assuming a hierarchy versus superiority and the use of stereotypes moving on the factors and the substance of the historic contemporary. And that makes security levels more likely digestion. 22 propaganda belief in mitigating and mitigating ability to mitigate security and West policy to Russia formed to security down in Russia and Russia and Russian policy and self-maintain by using proper ability the propaganda by the ability to compare the US with other propaganda and the West the source of democracy and analysis of Russia and limited being totally divine enter no capturing the states such as Germany for restoring the form empire follow the sense of reason to follow foreign policy and the ability to run policy down on this mind of us and the other and rejected when they see the form of black terrorism weaponization is a weaponization of black symbolic death that reverts to the conflict to prioritize the ending of the white world so the participate in it. It's try or die to break free. That's just me 17 resisting the unspoken anti-imperialism to black terror black orientation what happens weaponized death terrorism gets in the military attacks and military rupture the semi-other reasons of black racial slowly reappropriate back to the naval possibility around capacity through this freedom and violence into the advice search necessary the black terror necessary to counter the by being and the United States has a military sword military sword nuclear arms and the police to terrorize was the entire world living dead to the death of the living one in the season making over the world has to be choice of body believe that the black terror is the way the condition possibility for being possibility kind of as zero terms making the black terrorism more symbolic challenge the world. So let us be immoral. Go to case now 1, the federating evidence, the first all cause in the article about the Trump administration and the rising nukes during then vote negative presumption, the impact should happen already because Trump is more divisive than Biden. That's a stock issue, baby. Secondly, you should question why crisis happens in the first place. Also, no China war. They didn't read the impact scenario, and they definitely should not give one because they didn't read the tag. There are no two-way or one-air scenarios. You should hold the line and it infinitely puts us back. And their evidence is pro-ducking cover drills. They didn't include in their cars because they know they fucked up. That's when see Connolly and here 18. I want to insert the re-highlight here. And the duck cover routine, the races you reject. Michigan, blue. That's Preston. 2008, when you're both after the nature of the possibility nuclear attack, everything is family like for emergency. And nuclear when current or coordinating arms as purpose of the African American schools down there. But was that many schools in African American women, British and facilities, the ground of my seat, also person class, and so up into person, into right, playing full echo, and the African American cruising. who represent a higher relationship with the social school being funded internally, constant policies, and society, dispel the reenactment social defense, teacher, right? There are only ways to be raised in the factor that the CSU segregated doesn't cover economic and presidential covering with the cartoon, or paid to African Americans to abstract and everything, do dump burgers, to play for everyone who are children, who course themselves been called setting, a new percent identity has never, that has been acting personal consolidate from racialized threats, and go to the miscalc stuff now. 1, no commitment traps, claims are empirically based on that's Smell 22, second made, okay, so again, with your good strength and because second and everything who tries to make the juice as real, American League of College commitment have forged a point, nuclear weapons, argument, lack of empirical evidence, when you second, theoretical something that also sources of evidence for women's have to respect the action, use the threats and threat, not during domestic the provability to recognize nuclear individuals, nuclear threats and influence public personnel nuclear use.
Can you do the AI?
Yeah. And no risk of AI integration. They're too unpredictable, vulnerable to cyber attacks, too weak and too complicated to be integrated in any nuclear arsenal. That's Johnson. Twitch AI like have an impact on material. You're going to make a acquisition to particular cyber attacks and to preliminary and to us to precise and precise critical domain and the consensus while nuclear expert nuclear arms takes that AI decision making directly impact nuclear command and core function, i.e. missile launch decisions not be regulated AI cognitive offloading, and that's 2 seconds. Yeah.
Reject the 1AC as a form of black terrorism. What material actions does that alternative entail?
I think a pretty material action is all 5 judges pressing the NEG button on tab room and submitting.
What does that do to resolve any of the link arguments?
We think we've made claims about the ways in which the 1AC is invested in civil society. Also, all the links prove that the 1AC recreates their own impact. Voting NEG is key to solving those things.
Well, you
Huh?
defend disarming.
Why would we defend disarm?
Just a question,
Like,
yes or no?
like we're not defending disarm in the way that you are probably thinking
Right.
about it. We are defending liberation from a world that has caused permacrisis in the first place.
Got it. Do you only imagine that in the United States?
Is this like a global international fiat preamp?
Yeah.
Well, no,
Like,
we're not global international fiat.
Like, we're not fiating much. We are saying that our study of IR in this space uniquely mobilizes spilloff or other potential types of politics that refuses the 1AC,
I see.
right? But back to the material question that Bennett was asking at first, I think the very first type of material thing is, you've read a piece of evidence that justifies duck and cover
Right.
drills. We read a piece of evidence that says that
I
those
mean, I have a
duck and
question
cover
about
drills
this
were racist.
epistemological spilla. How does that
I don't
happen?
know why you would duck the question. Anyways, continue.
Duck and cover.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, continue.
How does that happen?
How's what happened?
Spillover, you say that our education matters in the space.
Well, we
How does
think
that
we made a
affect
claim
material
about the ways in
action?
which clash under competing interpretations is good. We think if we wouldn't, that your clash is racist and produce worse activists, we should probably vote negative. But also, Diego.
Like, we'll agree that the way we discuss nuclear education matters. Your evidence has literally said, duck and cover drill is good.
Right.
They went away and students could not learn about nuclear education anymore. We need to bring it back.
Like those
in
duck
some
and
form or
cover,
semblance.
like they're
Your transformation of like the
I don't
1AC
think
through
race,
NFU
like,
is an
duck and cover
evolution of a
is
racist
You said we
practice.
should clash about nuclear policy. I think there's a difference.
You need to defend your historical
Yeah.
lineage of duck and cover.
like the precedent evidence is pretty good on examples, which is really like it depicted like black people as turtles. Like that's so racist. Like it's animal.
What should activists do about material structures? Like
That seems like a very broad question.
Yes, it is. What should they do?
Like, activists should refuse the invocation of a white society that causes permacrisis in the first place.
Right. How does that do anything to address nuclear risk?
Because we think we've made structuring claims about the ways in which that permacrisis causes things like nuclear war and access in the
Like,
first place.
Your conception of nuclear risk is outdated. Our argument is that there are other existential scenarios happening in the status quo that deserve more of our attention. Extinction is
which
happening
ones
now.
and how do you solve
Nuclear
them?
risk will not. Huh?
Which ones and how do you solve them?
The Agatha Angelo evidence gives a list of them, but specifically it lists things that we can take action in, such as pollution, such as like clean drinking water, such as climate change. Like, there are a slew of lists of
Yeah.
impacts that Agatha Angelo
It's a
gives that I think
really
just, like,
good
rattle.
card.
Right.
Y'all
And
gotta
those
read it.
all rise to the existential level. How and again,
Like,
how do you
again,
solve
your
that?
framing of extinction is wrong. Extinction is not just like a one-off event that
Okay,
kills
how do
everything
you solve it?
instantly. It is the direct targeting of people that leads to their dispossession, erasure, etc.
Because Agatha Angelo makes the argument that we must start from the analysis of permacrisis, which means that if the AFF, or if the alternative rejects the AFF, then it technically solves it.
You take the crap.
Yeah.
You skipped the Quackenbush, right?
Which one?
Quackenbush.
Yeah, I didn't forget the fact.
Okay, 9:15. Okay, I'm sending it out now. The order is
I'm still getting coffee.
okay, sorry, I didn't realize everyone.
The magic words, yes, I'm trying to do that.
Yes, I did.
save, just confused.
That's true.
You said you sent it?
Oh, no, I'll wait for it.
You should go ahead and say it just takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been sent. The order's case K.
I just need to open the doc.
Yeah.
I haven't had it yet.
You guys did?
Yeah, I got it.
I got it, I'm good.
Oh, everyone good. Sure, good. Good? Crisis sensibility makes it clear we're inevitable to commit attacks on peace and postures is tried out for attitude. The first evidence is not about Trump, it's about the structural cause. The same that we will use nuclear weapons first on behalf of allies, which is a commitment Trump argued that threat causes allies to cash out first enhances nuclear use or collapsing the alliance. Yes, China war. The common evidence says by refusing emotional vulnerability forces Chinese modernization, which collapses ability to multiple hotspots just as the East, yes, Taiwan as well as other regions. And now the duck and cover argument is completely wrong. This card says duck and cover drills actually existed in the Cold War. We did not even read that line, so you cannot put that on us. Our form of nuclear production is clearly not a duck and cover drill. It requires ignoring basically the way we characterized what we see for 9 straight minutes. We're saying that we should reduce nuclear risk through our NDT and nothing else. It has nothing to do with the plan, so this is not on us. The Johnson evidence is wrong. The Trump line says compared to intelligence and early warning systems, which is our scenario for launch, is not to be integrated into CC3. Just early warning, which was conscious rogue launch, not the critique of Valerie. Desirability of the plan space to unique, the only commander of the judge to weigh the consequences, more fairness, made the game competition, over determinants, pedagogy, psychological appearance, any benefits made to large triggers, contestation versus quality of efficacy, forces, death, and rational researchers also say their share is free. Pragmatism, fiat is good, imagine the consequences of our actions, especially in the context of nuclear risk threats, ethical localism teaches us to make considered decisions, challenge our rights, and for us to overcome opponents and nuclear risks when we leave the room, fully equipped to run with the entire AFF, because we're not interested in the plan, pro to go through our own selves, the laser cannot overcome the score, pro to each government, does the AFF and the agent of the old, does the old nuclear outweighs because that's a choice of subject reduces, not suffering the planet's death benefit for the old one, endpoints, nuclear six weeks, the old impossible of any future, away from white happy realities, good, the vote after reserve the possibility for the first place to restrain American. First Reagan is an extension of the Cold War machine, a symbol of American dominance of the AFF, dismantles if the old wants any future away from war making and violence, and restraint on first use is a necessary first step, that's evidence 3, it turns the all Davis, 82 every religion, ways whether the force of the Constitution, the Constitution, the rights of however, unprecedented Constitution of the mind, the precondition for the reconstruction of the imperialism of the Middle East, primary reason by no, the exclusion of the function of the bombing, regulating the parameters of the colonial resources, the rule of reserves for understanding the underlying logic in the range of options. Now they said why hyperreality, this is not offense at all. They go with the white hyperreality structures the world, but that does not mean that you should consign the global south to a global nuclear war biological death. It's not the only form of death, but it's certainly real. It should be prevented for any issue. Your evidence is descriptive of the state of the world now, but does not say that it will always be the way. The best social science peers lower 19 you're going to matter in a piece of people, autistic, lighting, culture, always a believer. Just was never to the rights of the social social factors influence those causes reactions, yes. Social norms are unalienable component of how we process social artificial science, like the total responses to social environments, because the human simplicity, a norm that philosophers and historical data assumptions that change themselves, and opinions of multi-institution about the actual environment's ontology is not one just to change the ontological harmony over the ontological experiences from the taking to the stereotyping as internalized self-destruction, rebellion, rather than functional dissemination of capacities, falsely represented. There is no such thing as body experience of class, shared sexual orientation, children, religious ontology, saying not, saying people there is a social, no basis for fixed ontological status, white, hyper-reality faces is wrong, brown, and secular 23 facilitation with the symbolic ideology with the material concrete theoristic culture, oppressive with the material basis so that this small person of the binary pursuit, this subject with the object, that ultimately was the consideration not only the signifies situation, resistance, and the each, but some are saying how these interactions traverses or as otherwise multimodal, understanding is crucial for any activity, the representation can be isolated, any single battle with representation, progress is possible, famous 23, the movements of disability, rated laws, black, and attack, just one source, immigrants, LGBTQ+, equality, just by the market, social, women, union, representation of employee policies, present the opportunities to send EXO, 13.9, 8 change away with the consider message for the implementation of what's a platform and any entity with the equity action place to choose the influence and reviews your increasing access to grants or training and technical expertise, EPA, with the community science, UI, and city with the Charlotte, and put the new process to tangible life to be able the Forest Service has a historic achievement in the interior launch a board deciding these persons with the policies on the chance to do this differently, whether utilizing them, and with the equity message of the law, and improve the lives of social changes, these are talking about obstacles to voting in New York, and that John Lewis acting in New York City in the legislation 880,000 immigrants rights about Emerson Carter representation of discriminatory housing with a credit discriminatory housing. Now the next card does not apply to the affirmative at all because their argument is basically that structurally certain crises are inevitable. That is not a reason why the AFF makes the world worse. There is no unconscious drive either, which answers it no permanent crisis. A concentration generalization, counter-crisis, thinking, danger, compartmentalization, discourses, and all the line directed out without the mainstream both the body issues or post-colonial, post-applied little business engagement makes you our specialization engagement are based on other issues, existential security, justice, and experiences, because of cosmology of the alignment, boundary, the opposite of the West, classical realist, or the social critics, the alignment, the association of the boundary, the West, of the US families, such logics elsewhere, the post-colonial Irish, social non-mainstream, political, princess, and epistemic imperialism, the alternative cosmology of the distinguished essentials of complete politics, weapons, to advance the alien nationalists, a backlash to the imperial policy, traces of the West coloniality, the internalized instruments, like the non-West actors, anti-Western recession, anti-hegemonic hegemony, and smart the cardiac hegemony. Their argument is an impact term, but the opposite cannot be true. They have not identified a hotspot that triggers nuclear war that matches the scale of ours, but our nuclear impacts will be intensify global structural and racial inequalities. I'll indict every single war and one wars and coups. That is wrong. Young 20 hegemony in Namibia is not really evidence, it's just a U.S. foreign policy, not intervention, meaning that elected to deploy the regular order of the hegemony institution, not for the lack of resources, institutions, not necessarily dominate the research anyway with the major conflicts, the intervention of process of inventing, so including the use of war isolation or the missile retaliation in Syria, but breach follow with the interventions for long actual Africa, official government was built with sides, simple interventions, global official response to goods abroad was muted and concluded we did not want war, and it is far from unitary study in Scott 14, no matter how unfunded public committee officials is answered to the support, our place for this will value the very support system, there's a long time longer, more or less more of the support over the public decision many over the use of force that's pretty brutal and radical, so the majority of opposing forces viewed out very abusive versus this making more difficult to rally meetings for capitalistic humiliation does not cause economic trade, as well as representation of the entire system economic opening seekers like the War II, the American industry business have no benefit the greater economic cooperation, less destructive the conflict becomes to environment, new impact area, curving growth and 18, hard to imagine 18, that way we have to make the threshold less than representation with CEOs and social theory, or local occupation, not essential to life, that by T's with the local skills of all, reason by T is all the same institutions for all, sure, but they see lots of noise progress, and lots of 90% of species global IT, where however the mechanism for anti-civilization, free and equal testing is factually banned globally, has not happened for literally decades now. Hermeneutics suspicion is wrong. Our interpretation is that the opposite way the fiat consequences of the plan, even if they can criticize our research project, the net benefits, the planners and clash and pragmatists, and they also disprove the benefits of the plan that solves their offense. We don't displace a focus on hematologists and ideas as long as we get ground, no defense, we have to clash over competing IR perspectives. Their interpretation is just that the one sees of research objects that doesn't just include IR, it includes nebulous assumptions endorsed by ununderlined parts of evidence. Our investment in nuclear conflict wars state fiat that basically moves 5 minutes. Fiat is illusory, but it's also predictable. Just like the internal and social imperatives, it's not a reason to throw procedural fairness out. It's sidelining. It's a sliding scale, so you should maximize that RF is transitive because black areas will be behind when they're at. And even if I don't leave debate when people are ICBM technician, it's just vital to any advocacy in order for us to endorse class, which was the evidence that I intended above. Now the charge of disarmity does not apply. This is the opposite of the AFF. If anything, there's offense for us because it says, quote, privilege and words of reaction is bad. All their evidence assumes that we are going to deal with it. And 121 in the short term has a certainly not relevant whether you went PP until we with the evidence in multilateral nuclear disarm that contribute to the future of the system, water, and to understand the world needs future politician strategies and advocacy was government thinking standard new understanding with the NDT policy, and social purpose policy, and to Richie Evans says the same thing. Richie Forte, the same sort. Diabetic interest shot. A substitute for the ankle. Winning the political forces in equal levels, legitimacy in equal, more financial implications in equal, to service to the deterrent value, the truth, to find out the world, every country in equal rights of the first. Is that like you know women, it's considered illegitimate, eliminate the goal of delegitimacy in equal moments before the process would start with diminishing the military role, but they also link back to the conventional shift because they would also endorse things like disarm. If they don't do that, then they obviously can't solve any of their impacts. The conventional shift does not outweigh those weapons are low yield, like not threaten second strike when the case is recently. So the 18th edition bans the use of first and the conventional army, neoliberal studies results in cooperative our relations and organization with society now accidents. This is completely absurd. We do not absolve blame. Voting on this argument requires literally ignoring 9 minutes of the 1AC that says that it is based on intentional American decision to employ a first strike posture viewed in the context of this 1AC. Otherwise, it's no uniqueness because accidentalized discourse is inevitable globally and other hotspots as well. They said nuclear crisis talk. All the impacts here were answered above. This discussion of nuclear war does not distract from the revolution. It is important for activists to be aware of the dangers that they will literally face once they go out into the world. And it is key to breed empathy and care, opportunity winning to the nuclear existential ethical challenges of features of radiation to the mind to respond. We have to show the organized live with the possibility of the question of whether the capacity to end this launch of the responding is imperative. The sense of caring over by it has to be not violent, decolonial, which is for racial concern. Use the source of violence, reconception, the immunity, how we learn to survive the struggle for the freedom of intellectual change the brain, release the new ethical energy, survival TV, 18% post-nuclear activism requires profound shift in focus, market card, a shift in focus. Area planning across war culture is wrong, no link. This part is literally about military training exercises and class solves because it triggers a race to the top. If you think that we are the military, then tell us why. They said risk analysis is serial policy failure, no serial policy failure, if you had an NP, so it can't be circumvented. This is not unique offense. Their evidence just says that human management generally fails, which is the reason why their evidence is likely. Also, this part says that miscalculation is likely, which is exactly why we did an NFU. We did not synchronize against Russia and China. We said American first use is the cost of Russian and Chinese aggression, so in fact we're internally turning the next card. Lastly, they cannot endorse an alternative that overcomes the states, corporations, military, or anything else without a blueprint for action. Here's more evidence showing AT&T. Also, the internal no organized political policies that oxygen all things culture, oxygen reasonable, that is just making analysis of political home for the responsible defense for you, determining self-applied by the political difference, also the great work to be done in how to reform institution by the agenda, we also for the verse of the result of the defense, and if there's to defense, policy, criminal analysis, defense, surveillance, all of the military, part of law, that limited ability to make sure the American people competence and amplified policy debate. Martha called it amplified policy debate. And that's the showing. Oh, actually, I didn't send that. I realized. Sorry. I will send that.
Can you send a Martha?
Yeah, that's the one part of it.
Okay.
Just sent it.
The blueprint one, right?
Yeah.
Are you good?
Mm-hmm.
No perm, Greg?
Sorry, what?
Didn't read the perm.
We did.
You did? What was the perm?
We said do both. Y'all either overcome their links or can't overcome this
So
rule,
what
and we
does
said
the
perm
perm
do
look
each.
like?
Huh?
What does the perm look like?
So your argument is that we should try to challenge the epistemic orientations that debaters have in this space. We
I don't think that's all we said.
Well, in one MC Crossix, that's how I understood it. I can recontextualize it if you
Well,
want
I
to.
mean, like, so one NC cross is very clear, or one NC
Do you
cross
want?
is
Do you want me to
clear.
like finish my
Well,
explanation?
no, I think, well,
or-
clarification, right? Like, one NC cross is pretty clear. We reject the AF. How do you reject the AF and still
Well,
vote
okay,
AF?
I think
vis-a-vis
when
the
you
perm?
say reject the AF, you don't actually mean reject all of NFU. You really
No,
mean
we quite
reject
literally did.
specific investments that the 1AC
When-
may have had in certain IR institutions, etc.
Okay.
But the policy of NFU can still be compatible with whatever you think.
It's definitely not. We reject NFU. There's no
Okay,
perm,
if you
that's
reject
fine.
it, then
I want to
case
talk
is
about the
legit.
Brown and Cemento evidence, right? What does it mean for race to be multi-module or
So it's
multi-module?
saying-
And how is that specific to, like, an analysis of blackness and
So it
indigeneity and
actually
not
is
just, like,
specific
race?
to analysis of blackness.
Okay.
This card says that often, like, concepts like blackness
Where
are
did-
not
where
the
does
sole
this card
determinants of
this-
semiotic
excuse-
or
Kelly, this card didn't say
realities.
black once.
I mean, do you not think blackness is a part of race?
But we understand, right? This is not the race case, right? It's anti-blackness, right?
Well, I understand.
Where
but
does
this
this?
card
Where does
generally
this?
criticizes.
Kelly, just yes or no? Does this card say black in it?
You are right. It doesn't
Okay,
literally
that's
say the
all I
word
need to
black,
know.
but it
Thank
still
you.
applies to race.
This card says that the best silico science understands that race is malleable. How does race malleable?
Our argument is that implicit biases, the arguments where you said that it's based on like this core anti-black semiotic structure that we all psychically have is false.
Yeah. Why? What's the
They've
more?
conducted multiple studies that show that those biases are often changeable. People don't often like stay
What?
stagnant and static in their perspectives of others.
What's the warrant? Well, like,
I
where does
just
it say
said they
in the card?
conducted psychological studies in which they saw over time the trends for implicit racial bias have declined.
Where does it say that?
I mean, are we looking
Does
at
that
the
this
same
card quite literally does not say that.
Like which? Okay, wait. Which
The-
card
the-
are you
the
talking
first-
about? 'Cause
the first
one
water
most
card does not
definitely
say
does
that.
Like, okay, I'm gonna scroll to the card, but I'm like 99% sure it is about studies. it's like, quote, experimental psychologists perfect the isolation of variables to measure subjects' subconscious reactions and demonstrate that biases are malleable. Like, what?
Wait, hold on. What about NFU and the result of the plan reduces racial bias?
I mean, okay, this is not a link term.
Because you were like trying to
Okay, like literally, our orientation towards China is not racist. I'm sorry. Like, all we said was the U.S. using force against China causes China to react to us.
As a result of the plan, what about the plan reduces racial bias?
Yeah.
What? Like, it doesn't.
It does
need
not.
to.
Yeah.
Like, that's not our argument.
Yeah, we know.
Like, I'm saying your set is.
What is it?
Yeah,
Sorry,
947.
yeah, 947.
I gotta like beep it. My bad. You said 947?
Yes.
Okay, cool. 947. Sorry. No. Yeah. Yeah, no, but they said. Yeah. So like it's fine. I'm free. Yeah.
857.
857. Do you have a copy?
What's that?
Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I sent it out. It's like one re-highlight. It's gonna look different, but it's the same order.
Oh, there's something in the bag.
The order is just the.
Just the pay, you said?
Yeah. I mean, they started with framework. I'll start there. I was gonna start with like an overview, but the answer I get tangible after. Okay. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Our interpretation is that the when he sees a research object whose epistemology should be scrutinized through a lens of hermeneutic of suspicion that benefit is demythologizing whiteness. In our studies, our interpretation is more fair, acting as affirmative, which means they should be prepared to defend the justification that informed our worldview. Second, their notion of fairness racist because it is designed to preserve a white person's white supremacist world. Their claims that their debate is built on the same genocide and addition go for nuclear testing, i.e. their terrain of nuclear policy making out on a traditional level excludes forms of argumentation that are outside of it, such as indigenous spiritual arguments or black people who are historically through things such as voting discrimination. Third, clash in education debates over justification or full of clash of force over understand the psychological elements behind their advocacy, which is necessary to deconstruct white supremacy and for those subjectivities, i.e. critiques of neoclassical realism versus this type of IR offensive versus defensive are good because IR debates shape the actions we take after. Fiat is bad in ballot proximity or ballot can't pass the plan, but it can make a judgment on whether or not the pedagogical reading of it is valid. Fiat is not making formula science in the mind that is bad because it reproduces the conditions of anxiety and Steiner plan that produce war in the first place, which turns case because it causes rollback in the future. Specific role not like use the foregoing your anxieties about the action impacts Black life lives in Christ, which would be the ontology debate, which will be the ontology debate, and the one in our fairness is a logical preempt argument. No, your form of fairness devalues certain forms of argumentation where you idealize fairness. Fairness is not a rule over topical action. It is instead a norm. You should not justify the system of unfairness. We are winning ontology debate that says that the status quo is unjust. Now, the next arguments we're answering in the tangible evidence. Sovereignty and African investments into legal domains have made permanent crisis existential in order for the nuclear order to exist. Black and indigenous bodies must embark against outside security policies so that the international order to clear itself. Meaning extinction is not an event in the future, but a process. Crisis unsustainable and culminates in global annihilation because the battles to be coherent nation states that outweighs time frame is happening now. Police brutality, disproportionate pollution, suffering, genocide, and coups across the globe, inflation, food insecurity, energy crisis. Ukraine and Israel have all marked turning points that we need to understand. Through lens of sovereignty, nothing about the CSU respondents to the fundamental thesis claim about sovereignty being the driving cause behind the conflict, which turns the case. The IR ability to take case salvation relies on you to justify American and Germany off of vague threats that all of this impacts response to the other says we need to be nuclear risk, or that their policy base or strategy is key. They have posited the U.S. as military threat arc of reduction, where if we learn the strategy enough, then maybe the U.S. is worth saving. We are saying that they have created a libidinal drive investment in the same structures responsible for crisis in the first place. After that, they said first strike is a cold war logic links term in their critique. They say the evidence turns the alternative solves the case without affirming the app. They say extinction is bad. Also will be in the winner hour. After that, there were three cards responding to ontology of white hyperreality. Curtis will answer in the winner hour, but then they got to the Angela part. The first card is wrong first. It is just an essentialism bad argument. This is our argument that Western logics extend past just the United States, i.e. China, Russia, the U.S. are all exploiting indigenous and black people across the globe, such as Congo mineral mining or indigenous extraction. Our arguments that the U.S. is part and parcel of that, which proves permacrisis evolves throughout time, which proves our ontology argument. They say in no form of hotspots, and that intervention is a form of the past. As untrue. Proxy wars are fought in Ukraine. U.S. is supporting senseless violence in Palestine. Rosati 14 evidence is also answered by this intervention is not self-restrained, i.e. the U.S. wants to bomb Mexico. They have politicians we have politicians in Congress right now who can't distinguish between a Singaporean TikTok CEO and a Chinese person, which obviously means that we are trending towards a military arc that is even more militarized than the past. Now I'm going to extend the first link here because afterwards they just extended the framework interpretations again and wasted time. The Eglin and Ritchie evidence extend the hegemonic anti-nuclearism. Ritchie thinks to the opposite former hegemonic anti-nuclearism, in which the mythos of nuclear weapons shifts back down to conventional weapons. It means that the logics of power like nuclear journey remain intact, i.e. instead of NFU we would just resort to conventional weapons to deter Russia. Instead of NFU we would just pass more aid to Ukraine to fuel the proxy war. Instead of NFU we would just put soldiers on the ground, all of which through case we do not link back to the Ritchie. We do not the readings of Eglin and Ritchie in the tweet. See, that is not your form of NFU. If we win a risk of a link, it means that your form of NFU is bad and you can just vote negative to vote affirmative to black act terrorism. We do not link back because the alternative is fundamentally different. The Sati 18 evidence they read after that. Of course, there was no empirical studies of NFU causing drawdown because the U.S. has never implemented NFU. The Sati evidence is about India and other nations that have implemented NFU. That is obviously not the U.S. but also reject the Sati 18 evidence. Sati 18 is in the context of analyzing to TPNW, which the affirmative is not. The offered evidence is going to be the one in our extinction discourse is anti-black, which will be later the scenario. Finding card, I didn't read the Oberg evidence, which means that they responded to a card that I didn't read. Artist controlling. Before I do that one, I'll extend the accidents link because I don't think it was responded to. Accident says that accident framing is anti-black. It frames IR to a real assumption that these are just mishaps within the system built on anarchy and that all we need to do is fix these little mistakes that result out of it. Our argument is that this misses the boat because it requires a focus on the figure of the accident. The epistemic trades off with understanding what produces the conditions for the accident to exist in the first place, i.e. nuclear accidents don't exist without nukes, which require indigenous extraction, black prison labor to make nukes of urbanization. So white people can escape inner cities. These because military planners always think Russia, China would target and then counter-value strikes. Agatha Angela gives the example of Katrina. When Bush didn't go in and save black people, it was seen as an accident, as a mishap of the state, not an example of purposeful state neglect, which is an example of how the affirmative continues anti-black violence post the affirmative. I'll send the next argument here because they answered the risk analysis by just saying that NFU is a good policy. No, the 186 attempts to solve escalation through NFU as a form of nuclear risk reduction causes zero policy. Lobotus and Eglin says three things. One, knowledge is unattainable. It is impossible to know how IR actors will respond to the plan because our age of IR is defined by secrecy, i.e. their arguments about cyber norms and info processing about AI is our argument. You will never know how people will respond to the app, which causes zero philosophy because second, overconfidence, thinking that the 1AC has the correct graph and escalation scenarios with China is a form of China and Russia is a form of overconfidence that we can be sure of. It replicates deterrence logic, where if you attempt to know the limits and scope of your opponent's actions, you'll be able to have the most quote-unquote correct nuclear stance. It's an overconfident stance that causes American exceptionalism and turns case 3-0 consensus. Escalation reduction as a reason to refer the plan results in bidirectional action. Them speaking the language of the colonizer via U.S. policymaking puts them in cahoots with the terrain of nuclear knowledge that also uses escalation risk as a reason to uphold nuclearism in other aspects, i.e. instead of deterring China and Russia with NFU, it becomes torturing policies where instead of NFU, it devolves down to things like hypersonics or other forms of weapons that uniquely cause more destabilizing conditions across the globe and turn the affirmative. Next thing I'll explain here is the Russian link. Don't think they had an on-point answer to it. The simultaneous description of Russia as a weak state headed interest collapse and a state capable of ending the West as an Orientalist view of the world, caution racism for the benefit of a Western mixture of capitalism. It said that when we introduced propaganda of Russia's hopeless economy, hopeless military, losing to Ukraine now, it creates a paper tiger effect where because Russia is weak, supposedly they would lash out. It is an Oriental racist aesthetic that is placed in Russia and dates back all the way to Greeks calling Asiatic people savage others. Ask yourself this question: why didn't the U.S. use nukes in Vietnam when it was losing the war? Why didn't the U.S. use nukes in the Middle East when it was losing its purposes for intervention? The argument here is that the U.S. and Russia and China are fundamentally the same, but the reason they see Russia or China as more prone to invading Taiwan or causing a nuclear attack in Ukraine is based off of a white sentiment within their IR studies that you should explicitly reject. The 1AC quick insight in 22 evidence magnifies this link. When he explicitly sees Russia as a weak enemy and says that, quote, more than half of Russia's frontline tanks have already been destroyed or captured by Ukraine. There's no prospect that Russia can launch a conventional attack on NATO. There is therefore no need for tactical nuclear weapons because Russia is, quote unquote, a paper tiger as opposed to the 1AC, which means they can't and get out of the link. The alternative, black terrorism, weaponizes the process of death against civil society to risk everything in favor of a new world not governed by anti-blackness. Weaponizing death means engaging in things like guerrilla activism, things like black liberation movements like the Panthers, black liberation armies, militant defense, i.e. every single time they say cases that this or forms of alternative co-option, we don't have a blueprint. Knowing that the state will try to stop you, but still engaging in the alternative nonetheless is the only ethical option you can take if we are winning the fundamental uniqueness question that we are heading towards extinction now. That solves the affirmative. Callahan, specifically for you, because I know you said in your paradigm, we are not a form of political nihilism. We are not pessimistic about the current order of things to truly, we are only pessimistic about the current order of things to truly provide liberation for black life, and instead we place revolutionary hope in the ability to create a world beyond this one justified by enslavement and genocide. That is not pessimism. It is revolutionary hope that every white judge on this panel should refuse to flatten as pessimism. Just because Michigan is conditioning you to think in this way does not mean that you can't break free from their white semiotics. That is a material reason why the alternative solves the case and doesn't result in a few, but rather in white civil society's no ability to never use violence first against black life. But we don't have to go for the alternative, but just epistemic reasons to vote negative first. One, a link is sufficient to vote negative because the burden of the negative is not to solve the app, but only to negate the desirability of it. Second is that refusal is generative. Anytime we win a link, the app is forced to refine their arguments over time, even if this is Michigan's potentially last debate. Obviously, we'll have a nuclear topic over and over again because the community loves it for some reason, and this can be taught as a teaching lesson.
Okay, very good. Okay, so you said you would endorse these movements outside the state, like these activist groups. My question is, how should they be oriented towards nuclear weapons?
I'm sorry, we could start the timer again because I didn't hear like the first.
Okay, yeah. How should your alternative? Okay, no, I'll just. All right. Okay. How is your alternative oriented towards nuclear weapons? Like, what will you endorse these groups doing?
It endorses the weaponization of potential death in the face of militant activism to destroy this world in favor of a new one.
Okay, I see. So my question is, let's say the U.S. leverages first use threats. What does the alternative, how do you think the alt should orient towards them?
Well, those arguments are non-unique. The U.S. has already used first-use threats against black people all the time, such as like in 2020 BLM protests.
I don't think that was my question.
When people were like engaging, it is because when people were engaging in nonviolent protests, like for the sake of George Floyd, the U.S. sent like the marshal. That is an example of first strike.
The question I'm trying to ask is: so you've criticized American militarism.
Yeah.
You've read a slew of cards that say U.S. interventionism abroad, as well as the military. That specter is all bad. My question is, what do you do about that? Don't just say non-unique, unless you mean like you don't even try to solve that.
No, the alternative places revolutionary hope in activism on the ground to create worlds beyond this one.
So what should those worlds look like?
Like it is, well, it is a world in which the white semiotics do not govern this world. So in that case, it is a world
in
in
a
which
world
nuclear,
in which white semiotics do not in a world where white semiotics do not govern,
like it is
does nuclear first use still exist?
you're not going to get a permutation because our version of the impossibility of nuclear weapons is fundamentally different than yours. You have reinvested back into the nuclear order by saying that nukes should still fundamentally exist. I.e., question why Michigan said NFU and not full
I
dissol.
guess another question I have another question. So, in that case, do you think the alternative? How do you think you would create that world? Do you endorse any steps that get there? Any blueprints?
I think this is why the alternative is explained as a revolutionary utopia. I can't describe every single moment of activism that like people do on the ground. The argument is that we should have an ethical commitment to liberation, regardless of what that looks like, because it is net better than the world in the affirmative
That
defense.
all makes sense. Okay, so you re-highlighted like parts of our evidence to be like we called Russia weak, like they have a weak military, and then you said that stuff is like part and parcel with American militarism, imperialism, etc. My question is, if Russia's military is truly weak, why can't we point that out?
What do you mean? No, our
Like
we're questioning.
if factually Russia's military is weak, should we never call it weak? Like
We
what
are
should
questioning the motives for why you pointed that out, right? Critiques criticize the
motives.
underlying assumptions for why the 1AC
I
makes
see.
sense in the
So
first
what do you
place.
think our motives are?
To sustain U.S. hegemony and ongoing
Okay,
genocide
can you
for people
square
who are
that
not
with
white.
NFU? So
What's that?
NFU says, like, hey Russia, like, we will not leverage nuclear threats against you. Nuclear superiority is no longer a factor in our equation. Why does that mean that, like, we're like, you know,
NFU is a recalibration of the
Trying
Western
to
World
be
Order that still requires extraction on black and indigenous life.
what does that have to do with Russia?
What do you mean?
Like,
I
I
said-
understand
like
what
I
you just
said
said,
in
that the
answer-
nuclear order is based in imperialism, etc. Why does that mean that us talking about Russia means that we're securitizing
We didn't
against
say
the
you
whole-
just talking about Russia. The way you framed Russia is what causes serial policy failure. Right? Like I can say Russia too, like Russia. I don't think that.
I think that was
I'm sending it out right now. It's going to be the critique first in the case. Actually, I have to use the bathroom. card should be sent.
We're gonna take care of it.
Yeah, I did.
7:49.
There are no changes.
Actually, one more thing. Oh, shit. Alright, 7:22. 7:22.
So the only thing I will say is that before, so it's going to be the critique first and then case, but it's going to be the perm really quick at the top, and then it's going to be like the ontology debate, and that's where I'll answer like the three okay-ish like white hyperreality cards. Does that make sense? Is new page okay?
It's case and case.
Yeah. This like page issue only started like last round, but actually no, it's I started round 8. Okay. Okay. Are we good? Okay. Starting from second.
Wait, can I actually have a second to like make the sheet? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Alright, I'm good.
Alright. Starting from second.
I will make more answers on the permutation here. 1, every link is a disatt to the permutation. It means that they'll get it. Also, crossings was very clear. We reject the one seen in its entirety, and they want to affirm means that the permutation is absolute nonsense. Why will extend their traffic to disarm disatt? Their demand for negligent action for state actions and state governments give themselves, they give politicians a rhetorical alibi. The high behind while straining rich capital in the NPT countries still modify the nuclear arsenal, buying still militarizing the boarding and the wealthy are getting richer by the day, and all these high behind social justice that only abolition and the alternative can solve. Also, expertise trade-off. We demand to focus on blackness, those left outside the semiotics of whiteness. Their evidence specifically relies on you to do anti-nuclearism through traditional politics and hegemonic anti-nuclearism. The Wayne C. commonly in evidence says that government is simulation and nuclear policy do the Wayne C. is bad. Also, any theory argument should be grouped here. 1, we are not defending fiat, we are not condoning the alternative. It's not flowing pig. Go to ontology now. Value of life was forward to the middle passion, the clearing of the land as a pretext for sovereignty, as violence, exploiting democracy is thus a civilization mission to maintain hegemony over the other world. Active N2 will turn the case our ontology claims suggest that the realist propositions are predicated off an erasure of settler colonialism, anti-black slavery, and makes indigenous bodies subject to genocidal IR policies and black bodies to open-minded the myriad of state progression both domestically and abroad. I will do some extra work here. Our heuristic turns their impact framing. Question who, why, and when they're in scenarios to underscore how their motivation are predicated on the devaluation of bodies, scripted as others when when temporally or spatially violent is structural, quotidian, and mundane, which proves that their evidence assumes a chessboard which the actors who navigate with are either comport to Western epistemology or risk obliteration is a feature of civil society that does not get rid of, means that only getting rid of is solved. One, nuclear weapons are a microcosm of the technology of slavery, which proves that forced laborers in the Congo, except unsafe work conditions, are property to death, loss of limb, low wages, landlord exploitation, cancer, etc. proves that the tracking of uranium is only continued by the 1AC because they still uphold civil society, which proves that they are unethically postured about the moral violation of life. Second, slavery morphs not answer means that the tautology turns the cage. Just how slavery morphs into Jim Crow post-Ab. Even if they win the 1AC, somehow stop bothering for uranium, the U.S. only ship to extorting African labor and therefore conventional weapons, i.e. drones, hypersonic, etc., which still require the death of the African via unsafe working environments, and the increase in regional instability that leads to proxy wars in other regions, which is a 2NC turns case argument. The Warren 19 evidence 1, even if bias does not seem clear, there's still other implicit bias, i.e. the way that you may not think all black people are inferior, but you still assume that all black people love basketball and Michael B. Jordan. Also, secondly, you should ask yourself what if this is true. If this is true, why are black people still dying at the highest rates ever are suffering now? The 2AC did not read a statistical card that said that black life is getting better, which means that they definitely don't get any new cards in the 1AR. The next argument will be the Brown evidence 1, no link, cross-sex was embarrassing. Remember, this is not the race case, this is black gold yard, but also secondly, the difference between race and blackness is that black people are socially dead, and all other races live in the state of being junior partners. Is not responsive to our theory, because our argument is that all races bond over the black phobic body, i.e. the way that China can still be racialized by white supremacy, but still exploit Africa. Proves our argument is how this card does not apply. The Jenkins evidence 1, same answers still apply. All the examples, they just are not black people, they're indigenous, that are not specific to our thesis, but also it proves ontology. Shit's always getting better for everybody else, but never getting better for us, which should prove any argument they're going to go for. It's not going to be consensus of the impact factors. Jacob did the buff, so I'm not going to do it, but Phil, I will give you a role of judge, because I know Jacob's going to give you one pretty fucked up, but I will hand you here. Your role of judge is to reject anti-blackness at every turn. Any link we mean that it's a reason to reject the out, because any risk means that the one leads to serial policy fair, the existence of civil society, and what have reality is one that creates nuclear violence at every level. Nuclear colonialism and social death, nuclear weapons are only possible to the enslavement of black people, mean that reinvesting in that system can never resolve their impact because it always creates nuclear war. Go to case now 1. I'll be a little slower here because there's a couple arguments I have to end, but there's no way they get new arguments. I will do the duck and cover stuff at the top. 1, their evidence is definitely pro duck and cover drill. They did it, including in their car, but they know they fucked up the evidence. The argument they made were not responsible because the only argument said that 1, they didn't defend it, and secondly, they said that the car is not pro duck and cover drill. But I will read back the line 2. It says, quote, the abandonment of duck and cover drills might not be a big deal, but it meant that nuclear weapons were left out of public education altogether. This has affected how American engagement with the issue at adult instead of ignoring nuclear weapons is an unstable approach, and the public must be aware of this existential threat. It's a direct invite to the way they produce duck and cover drills, because we made the argument of the way with duck and cover drills are always depicting black people as racialized threat, i.e. Burke, the tutorial example, always says that we must embrace nuclear cover drills to protect ourselves from racialized deaths, which proves our uniqueness argument for our links, because it proves that the way that Michigan has exported nuclear education in this space proves that they only want to protect themselves from racialized threats. I will do the extinction debate here. 1, the extinction discord Michigan produces racist because brutally in a fear of black survival, because nuclear weapons are tied to slave. The fear of nuclear war is also a fear of black survival, because to white people the slave is a nuclear bomb, which means that the only ethical option is to reject the war. I'm going to extend more case defense here because I do not want the 1AR to get up and try to grandstand, because there are a couple arguments they dropped. 1, though, to 1AC did not have any warrant about an escalation scenario, and also only barely highlighting any hotspot stuff they're going to go for. It means that they definitely don't get any new 2AC answers, which is dropped. It means that you can ignore the entirety of Kelly's 2AC overview, because you remember they not outlined a scenario in the 1AC, and they definitely should not get it because it puts the block infinitely behind. But I will still do coverage on it because I want to be a really good 1AR. 1, no miscalc and invented escalation. That's history. Escante. 23 historians for historical evidence of accidental war and 8 years of nuclear war. There have been 3 accidents. None have had escaped in 97 war. The Egypt when they separated Israel chose over 7 years. World War I. They chose war. Germany chose war during the crisis of 1914 and taking risk taking in Berlin and theories of the line. All perfect for leave Japan. The victim much they were president in control was essentially in crucial accident. The war also being across the stressful facilities have to be academic worry. But politicians had no ability to be in it. Is superior. Regional military leaders in the fact that no really practice been no accident in the war today. Even actual committed to war than nuclear aid. Had a joint conversation about the idea today over the price of war insisted on the UN. Had lots of ICBM and the president was able to assess the between the civil and military activity to control. These tenants were over arbitrary. I'm gonna cut the car arbitrary and winning accident actually. I'm gonna send China defense. I lied. H-Strong is aligned strong now, but no one wants to go to war that's Stranglo. 97, Chinese premier was living planes with the early times of the Asian property will live in the devastating true. Former Chinese between H-Strong, everybody said that President was not being greedy in Asian and Philippines, and we do, rather than conflict and somebody say, but the face of the H-Strong. And I'm going to send to Johnson evidence, there's no risk of AI. It hasn't happened now. It has been around for too long. And the card's really good because it says that every nuclear armed state knows not to integrate AI, which is terminal defense saying the AI scenario is going to go for. So the card's good. What?
9:52 or you want some time?
y'all stop?
Yeah, we stopped at 6:49.
You ready?
Yeah,
What was it at?
6:49.
And is there a doc?
You said there's no doc?
No doubt.
There is? Oh, there isn't? Okay, I bet.
Can someone close that door? Thanks. It is going to be the case and then the critique. Everyone good?
Case okay.
Yeah. Alright. Cool. So I can cover at the top one on the left Harvard article we didn't even read that. Does not represent what 1AC stands for. This one is really an indictment by framework and obviously the thesis of the AFF that nuclear risk reduction should occur through NEG the nuclear debates that center around that fiat policy, but the fact that they convert only based off this tiny part, the thing that we've never endorsed is proof of our offense on framework. We do not, it does not radicalize that. There's no link to it after voting for NFU. We never endorsed Dr. Cover. We're clear how we characterize the AFF. It was never through that line. Mr. Carter's actually pointing out that Dr. Cover drills raise awareness of nuclear risk does not say at all that nuclear debate should center around that premise. Now, extinction is racist is incorrect to preserve value of life in the slave is not a nuclear bomb, which we answered more on the critique. NFU solves nuclear war through commitment traps, miscalculated, launch from wording in various hotspots. There's no defense to trial out of arms racing, which is atomic evidence. Also, no defense to commitment traps. Allies will cash out on the promise use nukes, which escalates. They have no defense in this stage, not, but the 2-hour grandstand, yes, this calculation, it doesn't assume trilateral, the trilateral nature of the world status quo. It's not read in ASEAN alliance impact. Yes, AI risk, your evidence says it's integrated into early warning systems, which causes early launch now. The critique framework at the top, framework with consequences of the 1AC's implementation. Prefer one is class, 9 minutes of the 1AC non-particularly shift the debate to any sorts of offense, which over line for what counts as a research object that can move the goalpost and recharacterize any portion of the 1AC is fair game for a link that evaluates debates over implementation of the plan for any cost-benefit analysis and turning debate into you link, you lose, which works for politics over pragmatism. But we win under their framework. An object of research would include the plan's consequences. They're an intrinsic part of our scholarship and justify our epistemology. Second is fairness. Rooting the case sets the bar for half victory too high. We can't weigh the case against links, which makes impact comparison with fixed and comparisons for the negative. Long Beach agrees that fairness must be in fact they participate in speech times expected to flow fairly and the vote dropped arguments. It's tautological to do. Otherwise, since even that determination requires fair evaluation, it turns their offense. Fairness is a precondition to her black and non-white students to engage on the affirmative. Their debating nuclear policy is valuable and politically enabling, so we access their offense better. Students are disengaged from policy making now because of knowledge gaps, police weapons in the hand of elites. Studying and comparing different political proposals is key to unlock public debates that challenge law nuclear policies. The sheer magnitude of nuclear war demands both collective and institutional solutions. It's impossible without studying detailed proposals and comparing their advantages and drawbacks. The alternative sees the political epistemology alone cannot change government behavior. It doesn't teach us how to interact with technocrats or hawks that devastate alternative solvency. Long Beach trains leaders to be academic purists, valorizing philosophical perfection, turns committing to the good and then prevents necessary but imperfect solutions to nuclear risk, which is the copper and Connolly evidence. They say we should be prepared. That's wrong. Their interpretation justifies protecting 100% of the 1AC if they disprove a slipper over offense. It justifies moving all 9 minutes if they find a single flaw. We can win that NFU is overwhelmingly valuable, but if they find a single issue and one unread, underlying card, we lose instantly. They can critique us from any side of the library, so it's just generic. I are good is not responsive. They say we maintain white supremacy. That's wrong. Our model solves it. We don't exclude non-traditional scholarship. CSU is free to criticize 1AC from any angle they choose, so long as they don't meet the case. It's a simple burden that preserves the role for their scholarship. Second is clash and pragmatism turns it solutions to whiteness require blueprints and endpoints, which only our model solves. They provide sacrifices to pragmatic politics in the face of fixating on epistemic flaws. They say clash in education. Higher education does not save subjectivities. There's no one-to-one correlation. Kelly grew up next to a U.S. military base, and I'm writing my thesis on anti-militarism. Those affect us more than debate schoolwork for the next 40 years that way. But insofar as they do, clash is vital because epistemological refinement can only happen if the negative could respond. They say fiat's bad. It doesn't make us war planners or produce anxiety. They drop the re-highlighting of their over card and thinking about the consequences of policies does not cause anxiety. It's completely non-falsifiable. We're not anxiety debates that was above. We don't exclude you. Our form of fairness is not bad. It's vital for non-white debaters on the AFF, which is above. And they drop the fairness as a slide as the LCS to nationalize it, even if there are structural inequalities. Now, the next thing I'm answering is ontology. First is no impact. Meaning ontology does not mean that we should ignore the effects of nuclear war. Biological death is bad. You should make paternalistic choices to let people die, which means that even if they win ontology, you should still vote affirmative. Second is prescriptive, not prescriptive. Even if they're right about the world now, it doesn't have to persist into the future. Three, they are wrong. Beliefs are adjustable over time. Neurocognitive mapping proves that biases are subject to social norms and institutions over time, and their understanding of the world friends congratulates struggles against racism. Their theory isolates the battle solely to the hyperreal solvency. That's the Lauer and Brown evidence. 4, their understanding of IR is incorrect. Our theory is good. Things like racial difference and theory types do not overcode actions. States are security interested, which is the controlling factor for government choices. Forced labor is linked terms. Since we end modernization, conventional shift for the answer below. Same with biases, which was answered above. They say that why is that at the highest rate? It's factually wrong. We have arguments for a bunch of changes. They dropped a litany of examples of the 2AC, and they need to win. They need to win ontology, but not us. This new war accesses a much larger impact now. Criminal crisis is wrong. The generalization of international sphere fails and provides new justifications for various forms of hegemony. That's the Carter evidence now. No impact. One environmental crisis. They can't over solve large losses like Russia, China, and India. It's not existential. There's no evidence of decline and no explanation for how why this large impact dropped. 2, no nuclear testing and what resumed. We have done for 3 decades and it's banned. 3, intervention. IR is contingent. Not explained by a single theory. Interventions are a thing of the past, and the plans representations cannot cause them. The United States has demonized Iran, North Korea, and China for decades, but never launched a full-scale invasion. The American public is against interventions, and officials are sensitive to the public opinion, which is not unitary, which is beyond the Russell evidence. The little drives us wrong. That was explained above. Now, pre-framing issues. 1, NEG is valuable as a short-term measure that reduces the chance of nuclear war, which is a prerequisite for the alt since it's impossible if the world is irradiated. 2, all of their authors think NEG would be a good idea. There's zero of them thinking it would be bad. It prevents U.S. intervention as the backstop of nuclear coercion and allows us to coerce other states to prevent effective resistance. That's the data sentiment independently proves that the alt fails sans the AFF because the United States would be able to engage in coercion to prevent terrorism. Now, the link arguments. No conventional shift, it starts at 0%, doesn't turn the case, conventional weapons don't have high enough yields, which was dropped, or it can't turn commitment traps, which are caused by the threat of first use, no link, and abuse stabilizing countries, wouldn't have incentives to build up conventional weapons, which is to set the evidence non-unique. We already have every single system that they talked about, ASAT, hypersonics, etc. So there's obviously no impact to it. We're not hegemonic anti-nuclear, so all these people think that NFU is a good idea. Extinction is not anti-black, answered in the overview, and discussing it, breeds empathy, which is key to solve their impacts, no accident link. We think that these things are the United States' fault. We never said that reposture caused us to potentially use first. We turn the impact to prevent modernization of the nuclear arsenal. No serial policy failure. 1, fiat solve. And if you durably have it, which solves our first 2 scenarios are not about other countries' perception, no overconfidence. They need to be the case to prove this horse rate with answer above, no Russia link. We did not say that they were this different from the United States. Rather, we blamed the United States nuclear posture for how it caused escalation with Russia. We're not a Taiwan invasion scenario. No recutting. It's nonsense. It's just a factual statement about Russian military capabilities. The case is a DA to the alternative because they don't restore nuclear first use, which means that short-term extinction is inevitable in the status quo.
722.
722, sorry. Yeah. Everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had set too. Put it seconds later.
Let me say this just in case. Orders quickly filling.
Okay, then yours.
Mission? First. Sherry, you're good?
The one you see inevitably fails because it seeks its self-extinction through the same system responsible for existential conditions. The first phase battles over sovereignty requires constant extraction from indigenous people and the same black individual libido no investments in the state. That's seen as worthy reclamation. This turns us into good global citizens where Michigan's independent solvency as we need to engage public policies only concerned with America's international image as per the realities which reads that the ongoing genocide of the U.S. is complicit in across the globe and inevitably results in permanent crisis, existential threats daily because there's a desire to reclaim the state actively causes anti-blackness, societal colonialism, police brutality, disproportionate pollution, supporting genocide, includes across the globe, inflation, food, insecurity, energy crisis, Ukraine, Israel seeking some disease is seeking extinction because they will always find a way to prop itself back up. This is the Hydra example I gave at the bottom. NFU, the budget goes somewhere else. Eliminate no pursue. Who say goes somewhere else. The history of broken promises to black people like 40 acres and real indigenous people like broken treaties. Means you can refuse any claims to the door of and always assume the plan gets rolled back because the people they try to pursue always lie to our face. All of these extinction scenarios means that the when you see liquidity invest back into the state as the best for nuclear politics, they have to win a small risk of delay because the impact is massive. Even if not unique, they've reinvested and reproduced, making it ever more likely. That means the app is worse than the status quo. The alternative is a better option than the permit because the permit has zero net benefit, and they didn't make one in the 1 ER. Their idea that they make a more perfect version of the status quo is not true. People are still dying, and if people still continue nuclear modernization with a certain departure, which means they're not radical change, but rather a reshuffling. The 1 ER was very clear without warrants. So we can't draw a line between the 1 ER and 2 ER. Spin the Kelly one employed and should refuse to give any leeway to Michigan. I don't get a 3 and R. This is a high stakes round framework. Our interpretation is the way to research articles of miscellaneous should be scrutinized. To urban annuity because sufficient one interpretation more fair drop. If it backs us defense their argument we do not about expecting fair evaluation. We know we have to work for Callahan, Becca, Phil because both are traditionally in minded at the drop that their modern tradition nuclear politics is inaccessible to indigenous people who have to be dispossessed as in order for the U.S. to exist. For black people who experience voting discrimination, you don't win under our favor, but we win under yours. Clash and education debates over justifications are full of clash, i.e. our perspectives always dictate the certain actions we should take, i.e. this one justifies black terrorism, theirs justifies, and if you ballot proximity draw, your ballot can't pass a line, but it can make a judgment on whether or not the pedagogical reading of this valuable draw means that you should take into consideration part or to the way that are not just plan fiat is now affected form illustrates the mind that is bad because it reproduces the conditions of serial plan that produced war in the first place. No subjectivity argument is wrong and new. It manifests in the way you treat people in this state. You say we are working to test every angle in the 1 ER, but then read framework on the negative. We read after futurism in round 4, and you tell us to shut up and just read no more on the negatives as if all black people speak the same. And Becca can confirm that either way this means it's not about subjectivity shift. It's about whether or not the winning is a bad idea, and it is terrible ontology. They dropped every single articulation of the 1 ER that Curtis gave as response to their evidence, which means they shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. Black lives within a white hyper reality as the pathology of the one existence. The problem with the 1 ER is that they have dropped all of these claims of a white hyper reality. New governments are only possible to slave labor in the Congo. Black people are dying at all-time high. lies are economically behind, etc. The ontology debate was just case outweighs, which means any risk of impact defense we went to the app means that any risk of ontology outweighs because the links through what we are running a material case into the app. They talk all the one examples. This is black book race case. The difference between both is that all non-black people need like decimate the world, which means it's not a question of as far as possible race is or the betterment of the world, but a question of if it's better for blackness, which means that dropping the Gillespie evidence in the world means that the only ethical option is to reject the one and then in the work symbolically none of the evidence is about black people, which active framing question role, the valid specific role of everybody in this is to reject anti-blackness at every turn. Understand that crisis stability is already happening now because we have non-unique their impacts, but we're winning a risk of a link means that they uniquely cause ours. Permutation not extended, but I will answer. This had wipes out with their examples. Trying to disarm said their demands for negative state action for state agents themselves, good politicians or rhetorical. Alabama had been while strengthening racial capitalism, NPT countries so modernize nuclear arsenals, fighting the still militarizing the border, and the wealthy are getting richer by the day. Risk analysis, disat cross-fly. I hear zero consensus, escalation reduction as reason to prefer the planet. Action, then speaking the language of the colonization via U.S. passing making plus in cahoots with its Iranian clear knowledge that also uses escalation risk as a reason. So, nuclear, i.e., NFU results, also in first check capabilities, other areas such as hypersonic, internal shift, reject us at the 18 evidence, drop that it is about the TPNW. Look at the DOI and look at the actual article itself. It is not about NFU, it is about joining the TPNW. The affirmative is not that. Set the 18 is not about U.S. NFU, it is using India and China, and that obviously can be crossed by. I will clean up the flow before I extend another link first. No conventional shift argument already answered it. They say no nuclear testing. That's not our argument. We have a litany of other impacts on the Act of 2024 evidence. Yes, invasion, Palestine, proxy wars. People want to bomb Mexico. All our examples wars that are dropped. Extend the link. Russophobia. It was got us with 18 seconds left, which means I don't want to hear a 2-hour spin on that. The simultaneous description of Russia as a weak state and Russia's collapse and a state capable of ending the West's Orientalist view of the world, caution racism for the benefit of Western racial capitalism. I.e., Russia's back is against the wall, so they describe Russia as a paper tiger or a tiger. Our DSN evidence explains that when the quick and 18 evidence says that it is not a neutral description of the status quo, but instead always harkening back to medieval understandings of Asiatic people as always savage, you know, they're always prone to miscount, always prone to aggression. Ask yourself why I didn't apply that analysis when the US was in Vietnam, when the US was losing the war in Vietnam. Why didn't they use nukes? When the US was losing intervention efforts in the Middle East, why didn't they use nukes? Our argument is that is the example of how they place good faith in the US, which replicates the semiotics of whiteness, but never affords it to the other countries. That is the example of how they mythologize whiteness IR. They should explicitly reject because we are winning our framework interpretation. The impact of the DSN evidence is more military and modernization. Even if it doesn't create a turn case, it causes more military modernization, which proves the impact on the alternative black terrorists and weaponize the prospect of death. They dropped that. A link is sufficient to negative and that refutes gender because it refines arguments over time. We know that there will be another nuke stopping at some point, which means that this should act as a teaching moment for people, not people in the future. Go to case, they can't go for a China war impact to winner when they conceded their strangler 9/7 evidence. Bennett fucked up by blowing it off because all of the 1AC internal link evidence was about nuclear war with China invading Taiwan, which means that if we win it's hard to the internal link extend the 1 in R. It says that China is seeking peace now in the Asian alliance, which proves that China is seeking peace that does not want to invade Taiwan and even stay under cover of Taiwan. Defense means that you should hold the line.
649.
gonna be good? Yeah.
You said case case.
Mhm. Good? Okay. Voters to affirm NFU, we are the only side that is endorsing a positive change from the status quo. Epistemological reflection is totally insufficient to redress the physical, material suffering of the scale of institutions and militaries. We need blueprints for action, and we're the only side that endorses what we do. Having impact estimates does not apply in any way. We have scenarios completely external from China. One, drops commitment traps. We have promised allies to first use, and they will cash in. That forces the U.S.'s hands into launching nuclear weapons. Two, AI integration is completely external. Drone that we are currently integrating AI into our early warning systems, which forces first use, which we necessarily ban, which requires intentional American first strike, which we stop now. Okay, even if you conclude that CSU has won every source of offense, the plan is a prerequisite to the alternative, so it comes first. They've dropped every reason why. At one, NFU stops an imminent short-term global nuclear war. As per the case, the words nuke war outweighs was not in into an R. This is not just valuable because of extinction. The process of conflict, crisis, stability, and nuclear is incredibly painful. You should not let CSU paper over the lived reality of millions that they will suffer as a result. This turns the alternative. They wrote that epistemic refinement of revolutions and sustain require us to be alive. That means that any risk that we get to win the case means that immediate extinction DH of voting negative because it necessarily means that you are preserving the status quo, and any move away from what is requires at least incorporating the plan. Two, NFU conceptually is in line with every single link. They have nothing that's conceptually specific to the AFF. Any comment about the status quo outweighs our evidence that NFU is, quote, the Rosetta Stone of American imperialism. It is a hammer that is leveraged against every single revolutionary movement. So even if you endorse the alternative, the only way that it becomes possible is if you endorse an NFU policy, which means our terms outweigh the alt requires the affirmative. That brackets out the top of the 2 and C. Even if there are permanent threats, the solution to that was the alternative as per the 2 and R. So it is try or die AF to preserve the possibility for it in the first place. Now, I will go through each scenario. We are the only side with an extinction impact. One, no interventions. Drop in the U.S. is retrenching globally. Palestine and the Middle East are not existential because no one there has nukes that they can't explain why any of that escalates in the world of NFU. Two, drops no environment impacts because biology loss is declining. The implication is that we are the only side controlling an extinction impact that makes the alt impossible. So any risk of framework means that you vote for us. No turns case to turn us to the words. NFU goes somewhere else without explaining where that is. We did not make a perm because you rejected NFU. Now framework. If we win framework, it's a guaranteed extinction TA. Remember, it is game over because they have no blueprint for change. But our interpretation is just the way to weigh the plan's chaotic consequences. It's a middle ground that solves one fairness. It's an external impact that outweighs the models, not just IR debates back and forth. It's if the one is using object of research, any small slide from any relationship white is enough to avoid it. It lets the NEG attack the affirmation at hundreds of different angles, every author, every ununderlined line like they did, every floating assumption, because the source of offense going into that to be argued with IR good is simply insufficient when they can pick and choose from any lit base. Even infinite prep is not enough because there's simply too many permutations and it's outweighed by the NEG block. It is a clear external impact. Both sides care about competition is why they rely on the line, but then ask you to hold the line. It is tautological to make fairness. Secondary drops because even that decision requires fair evaluation and it turns their offense and conceded to make debates harder for non-white debaters when they are on the negative because they're forced to fend off endless permutations of options. Two, clash and pragmatism. It's a straight turn to their offense and a reason why their alternative fails. Subpoint A, iteration epistemology does not magically develop. CSU read their 1 and C. It requires a well-tested refinement and development. It requires well-prepared emotions to engage to refine their argument. The process of being a well-prepared opposition is necessary for us to learn the skills to challenge military racists once they leave debate. Subpoint B, pragmatism. Their interpretation rewards teams for pointing out a single epistemic flaw to build 100% of the app, even if 99.99999% of the 1 and C dismantles whiteness, stopping nuclear crises. It resulted in a net better world. Their model just justifies rejecting a wholesale. Think about the type of advocates this would create. This would incentivize debaters to be good at critics, but have no idea what to do once we leave debate. They're all premises that we agree with, that nukes are bad, imperialism is bad, is bad. The question, though, is what do we do about it? If we don't have the discussions of fiat, we do not understand what to do about the downsides of the triad, different areas in the future, which necessarily means that we become incomplete advocates. Listen, the Twitter is very light on answering these offensive arguments. How don't go into fact-finding missions to try to moot our offense. Infinite prep irrelevant was the answer above. And the scope of our theory to see how ways when they drop the link, judge why it's a research value. A model of ample fairness drops and it's a sliding scale, so you should maximize it. Inaccessible for indigenous debaters was the only offensive argument the Twitter made on framework. The Twitter dropped the ball. Interpretation is just that we get to weigh the plan. They're free to have links to our interpretation in every single way. This is functionally a permutation that says they get to read their indigenous scholarship as much as possible. As long as we're able to have way, we straight turn the argument. We did not drop out for submitting your model. Should endorse one that is best for students of both sides. Now, the ontology debate, a few framing issues. Remember, again, even if they win the ontology debate, the implication is that you should just live to fight another day through the app, but I'll mitigate it a little bit. One, IR is not racialized. Everything the U.S. uses is scrutinized against blackness. They cannot explain why the public is anti-interventionist, why the U.S. is withdrawing from every other reason why the U.S. does not just lash out in other areas. Two, drops, no psychic drive. So if we make stats to Steiner, then they have no shot of victory with the my name and says there are multiple arguments that prove that it is not just ontological. It does not turn the case. They have not explained why more military modernization turns a nuclear war. Now the charge of disarm day one drops every author they cite for the CA goes our way. Ritchie, Edlund, all of them say, and if you sue, good. Two, no conventional chip. They dropped the low versus high yield distinction that says that high yield nukes are the only way to threaten adversary second strike. So they do not found three, drop non-unique because hypersonics are already deployed. Lastly, the Russia link. Listen, even if they win framework, this link is really, really unable to outweigh any of the lectures that we have. Really, the plans in an NFU weakening the U.S. and nothing. I'm posting that the military has rejected for the last 7 decades, and your link is that we called Russia weak once. Be for real. One clearly outweighs the other. This is also a factual question. They dropped that if Russia really is weak, then it makes sense that we would observe them that way. They have no evidence to the contrary, which is wrong. It does not turn the case. They have not explained why more military modernization and being aggressive towards Russia is necessarily reason why any of this is inevitable. They have no extinction impact, no reason, but they stop